Well, Jen, thank you very much. I want to thank Kelly and everyone at Mindshare Partners for hosting this event. I want to thank all of you for being here and for being vulnerable and for being brave and for being open. I think we can all agree that's the first line in offense to instill more of a culture that's mindful about emotional well-being and mental health. So I'm very grateful for that. Talk about mental health is nothing better than being out with your CEO as the marketing guy when somebody comes up to him and says, SAP, yeah. That's the button on the remote you push to get Spanish on TV. And he looks over at you and you're like, all right, so we got some work to do. Anyway, SAP is one of the largest software companies in the world. We make business applications to help companies run better. About 100,000 colleagues in 190 countries, so a truly global company, and you can imagine the unique challenges that presents. It also presents great opportunities to work with amazing people, many of whom who are here and have helped me with this. Vivek Bapat is here. You'll hear from him a little bit later. My colleague Jen Knights is somewhere in the background judging me on the combination of the jacket and the shirt that I wore, so thanks for that. Colleagues that couldn't make it, Julie Barrier and Jess Ernst, were very helpful with this too, so I want to acknowledge them. And we actually have a legend in this field who flew all the way up here from Los Angeles, sadly to watch me, although I think she would have gotten more out of this morning. Dr. Laurie Levin is over there. Laurie, wave. I would give her a round of applause because you want to meet her. She's somebody who has so much wisdom to offer in this area and who has sincerely dedicated her career to moving this forward. And I'm really honored that you would come up, and I appreciate you being here, Laurie, so thank you. Look, I think in the technology industry, we sometimes make a mistake of concentrating so much time and effort on the cognitive capabilities of the computer and not enough at all on the emotional well-being of the human. So for me personally, this has been a topic I've cared about for a long time, which is why when the team put this event together, we were so excited to get SAP involved. And I just want to tell you, in all the years I've been looking into it, I think you can really learn everything you need to know about mental health from Anne Hathaway career movies. Don't lie, you have seen The Devil Wears Prada at least 10 times. And you can hear the ringtone, right? If you really just think about it, you can hear it. And if you didn't see The Intern, who can't relate to the notion of trying to balance personal choices and family with wanting to have a career that sees you rise to your fullest potential? So, the theme for what I want to talk to you about today before we get to the infinitely more interesting conversation that Mike will lead is that if we really want to be in our cultures on the front line of destigmatizing these conversations, we've got to be brave, we've got to be vulnerable, we've got to be open, but we also have to find ways to make the conversation as easy for people to approach as it would be for them to come in after a long weekend and talk about the movies that they saw. Because people do that so freely. We all do that so freely, and there are themes embedded in the movies that we love that actually do help us to get where we need to be on these topics. So if you'll bear with me, I got a few I want to throw at you, and let's see what you think. The Avengers, any Avengers fans? Did you see it this past weekend? I mean, like everybody saw it except me. It's like $1.2 billion or whatever it is, the fastest movie ever to make that kind of money. My favorite in the 22 film series that led up to the current one is Black Panther. And have you seen it? Have you seen Black Panther? Good. So T'Challa is the heir to the throne of Wakanda in the movie, and it's an interesting look into the pressure that he feels when a job is thrust upon him, maybe before he was really ready to do it. And, as he's getting comfortable with the idea of being the leader, he's at the same time confronting judgment from his elders who don't necessarily think that he's ready, and he's confronting judgment from his peers who may not necessarily think that he's doing the right things as the king. How many of us have gone through that? In my career, having come up in a political background, every time as a young guy I got a job, I got the attitude from others that I wasn't ready, and that I couldn't possibly be the best person for the job. And it eats away at you if you let it. So again, the ability to see these common themes in movies like Black Panther that we love, it's really about us. And the stats back it up. Look at anxiety, we know, is an issue. And I found this stat fantastic because if you think about the amount of time that I might waste in a week because I'm dealing with my own ups and downs, it's different than the amount of time maybe you'll lose in a week. Maybe we're spacing out on Amazon Prime. I just took a Disney cruise and I literally can't stop looking at the itineraries for the next one because it's my respite. I can't wait. But it's time burned trying to get away from the stress and the anxiety and the fear. If you add it all together, among the billions of people in the workforce, every year it's 50 million years worth of productivity that we burn. So it's a big number, but it's an aggregate total of a lot of small numbers that we all go through day to day. It's a problem and an opportunity that we all have. So I want to thank Black Panther for helping me to put that in a much more human way than if I had tried to focus only on the statistic by itself. Anybody see the duff? Oh, you have to see the duff. Okay, so the lead character in the, I don't want to give away too much because you want to see the movie. The lead character in the duff is a high school senior, and she comes across the idea that her more attractive friends are often talked about in the context of having her as their duff, which stands for designated ugly fat friend, which is totally offensive, and that's the whole point of the movie. She stares down the label. She stares down the burden of constantly being talked about behind her back. She stares down the burden of bullying, in particular, the cyberbullying aspect. And if you look at the numbers, a lot of people do. 4 in 10 have actually experienced it, and double that, 80% know it's a big problem. And at work, I don't know if you've used Blind or other apps like it, it's now possible for people to go online and talk anonymously about what's happening in the workplace. And you know what the consequence of that is? I don't know if you've ever looked at the comments on a New York Times story about politics. They're so nasty. And we're getting that more into the workplace. The language that people feel comfortable using, jerk, loser, worthless, waste of time, waste of life. It's like, when in this country did it become so easy to stand up and talk badly about people in that way? Don't answer that. I know what the answer is. I don't want to get political. But look, it's a serious issue. And if we're going to talk about people's mental health and emotional well-being, we've got to be willing to confront that it's a lot harder to find kindness these days. And it's a lot harder for people who feel like they have something going on in their job or in their life to not have that thrown back in their face on an almost constant basis. And now, unfortunately, thanks to technology, it's easy for people to do that anonymously. So that's a serious issue that we've got to fight. The Family Man is a bit of an older film. And by older, I mean like, what, late 1990s. Have you seen, this is Nicolas Cage. It's Nicolas Cage. He's in a couple holiday films. This one's like Con Air meets Christmas Carol. Nicolas Cage, among the many actors who can scream indiscriminately in a movie for no reason, he's my favorite. He can just yell, yell, yell. The point of the movie, it's a little bit of a spin on Christmas Carol. He basically is a successful private equity manager in New York who has lived his entire professional life totally focused on the career. And at some point, he meets somebody who gives him the magic potion, and he has to go back, and he has to look at what his life would have been like if he chose love and family. And so it follows him on the journey between confronting what he missed by going all career and what he has. And it's a fascinating look. And I watch the movie every year, and again, how many of us, again, in a hyper-competitive career environment, how many of us sit back and say, I should have done that. I should have gone there. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have left. We all face it. I went through a career transition earlier in my life that for years after, I would dream about because I felt like it was deep down a mistake that I didn't do it. And eventually you get over it, but again, we all confront those choices. And in The Family Man, the focus was on balance, which again I find interesting from a statistical point of view. It's one of the great talking points that's out there, right? And we prioritize balance over money. Right? We all have heard that before. And, the stats will bear it out that people say it's as important or more than money. But at the same time, in another study I saw, so many of us are on our devices after 10 p.m. So it's like we love to talk that talk. None of us really walk that walk. So it's, once again, a pressure that we're putting on ourselves that contributes significantly to the pressure and the stress and the anxiety that we feel. And if you're looking for a red thread in all of this, allow me to present the villain, in my view. 2,600 times a day, according to one study, we touch the device, which is disgusting when you think about it. It probably happens in the bathroom more than any of us would want to admit. Come on. Some of you may be smart and don't do it, but I've seen many devices on display in the men's room. It's really disgusting. There is a direct correlation, make no mistake, between the rise in the device and our sensitivity to the mental health consequences that we face at work. My parents, both who worked full-time, both in stressful jobs, could leave it at work. We can't. And increasingly, we don't have the self-control or the discipline to put it down. And that's a real problem. We stress about charging batteries. If I wake up in the morning and I forgot to plug in my device at night and I have less than 50%, I am panicked. Because it's like, wow, what am I going to do during the course of the day when I lose juice? At one point, I had one of those extra batteries on the back of the phone. You ever try to put that in your pocket? It's like walking around with a brick. But the things we'll do to get extra battery juice. So here's the consequence, right? We think that the device is actually helping us to do more at work. We think it's helping us to be better with our friends and family, but let me challenge you. And I'm trying to challenge myself in this way too. Are we really doing that, or are we really just paying more attention to the device itself? When I'm at home, when I've got the device on the kitchen table at dinner, because I'm afraid of what I might miss. My boss might reach out and be cranky about people saying the Spanish TV thing again. You're with friends. You're with actual friends, but you're on social media looking at other friends. It's like, who are we helping? Nobody. We're relying on the device, and that creates our own disorder, which is that we pay more attention to the device, which causes us additional stress and anxiety than we do to what's right in front of us. So I'm going to tell you that I'm excited about when Mike comes up here. I put, Mike, your picture up there. I don't know if you can see it. Sorry, I wanted to get the credit for that. This report is important, and what Mike's company, Qualtrics, does is important because we have to, in the same way that we've all been willing to share our experience here, we have to ask people to share their experience. It's not enough anymore to give you the stats like the ones I gave you and expect that speaks for the full volume of what we're trying to confront. We have got to ask people for their experience. We've got to ask them in the context of being an employee at work. We've got to ask them in the context of being a consumer. What exactly are you going through? And I'm really happy that, Mike, that you did this. I'm happy, Kelly, that you sponsored it. I think it's going to be a really insightful report, and I'm excited that we'll have a chance to talk a little bit about it. So before we get to it, I just want to leave you with 4 more points. One thing I don't think we should do and 3 things that I do think we should do. So number 1, even as I think we can agree that employers have a major role to play in facilitating this conversation, in helping people to find ways to get over it and to conquer their own vulnerability and be vulnerable at work and be open about it, I also don't want to outsource mental health to employers. Sometimes in the communications part of my job, when things happen in the world, we see employees wanting our company and our company's leaders to take political positions. And I think that's a little bit of a fact of life. I mean, it's staring us in the face on a 24-hour news cycle. I don't necessarily want my CEO out there talking about political issues day to day. I want my CEO and my management team to be out there running a good company so that I can have a job that allows me to earn money to take care of my family and to have a life that I want. SAP is going to train or aspires to train all of our 100,000 colleagues in mindfulness. That's a great thing. But I don't think it's SAP's responsibility for me to be the best version of my own self from a mental health perspective. That's my job. So I just want to be careful that even as we encourage employers to do this, because we know people will want to work for companies that take it seriously, it's not necessarily the employer's job. It's our job, it's your job, it's mine, and it's our colleagues' job, and I think we should be sensitive to that. Incidentally, Vivek, I tried to make that guy look like you, so your picture is also in my presentation, so I want credit for that. You're welcome. Look, we talked about the device. I think that in terms of things we can do, the three things. Number one, we can admit the device is part of the challenge, but we can also admit that the device is part of the solution too. And I use 10% Happier, to get time to myself, Headspace, and Lori just showed me HERE meditation, H-E-R-E, which again, when you meet her after this, is changing my view on what a device can do to help refresh the mind. So I think that it would be wrong for us to just look at the device and say it's the problem, because in reality, just like anything else, the device can be part of the solution too, and we should embrace the innovations that are happening on the device that help us to take control of these situations and improve our own mental health. Number two, in the context of the duff, we should be kind. I had the chance a couple of years ago to meet a fantastic young woman by the name of Trisha Prabhu, and she created an app called Rethink Words, and it was designed to help combat the plague of cyberbullying at the adolescent level. And basically what the app does is you download it and you can go onto any social platform and type something. And if the AI in her app senses that what you're typing could be hurtful or offensive to somebody else, it simply asks you if you're sure you want to say it. And Trisha has shown in her early results that when you actually give young people the chance to think twice before they say something offensive, they actually will rethink it. So if Trisha can come up with a platform that kids in middle school and high school are actually using to stop or at least slow the plague of cyberbullying, certainly we can find similar ways in the workplace to encourage our colleagues to be more careful with their word choice and to be more kind to each other. Because there's really no substitute for that at a time where there's plenty going on in the world to stress us out. Being in some sort of a confrontation with somebody at work who just decided to revert to name-calling or poor word choice isn't one of them. And third, I think part of this is asking for the help we need. I said I didn't think it should be the employer's job to do all of this. I think it should be our job to do some of this. You can go on websites like Good Therapy and put in your zip code, and it'll tell you all the different mental health service providers who are nearby, and makes it very easy to make an appointment to see somebody. Why are we willing to accept that once a year you got to have a physical if there's nothing wrong with you, when we find it weird that we would go see somebody in the mental health context? I gotta tell you, I find going to see my mental health therapist infinitely more satisfying than going to see my MD. I mean, the shots that you got to get and all that stuff. I mean, please, it is soothing to be able to have a relationship with somebody who simply wants to listen and help you process your own stuff. Somehow, we've got to encourage people to ask for the help that they need. So look, in closing on my movie theme, I know it was mentioned earlier, and I think this is an excellent point. A Beautiful Mind was a great movie, and Russell Crowe and Jennifer Connelly did a fantastic job. But if you were to put all the movies I talked about up on a screen and tell people to pick out the movie that was about mental health, everybody would pick out A Beautiful Mind, because he was a paranoid schizophrenic. And he confronted and persevered and moved himself from the harsh treatment at that time for that condition all the way to lecturing at Princeton and winning the Nobel Prize. The reality is, we've got to change the tone of the conversation, as so many of you have today. Black Panther, The Devil Wears Prada, Family Man, The Duff, those movies are about mental health. They're about the day-to-day mental health that we feel at work. A Beautiful Mind is about mental health too, but let's be real. Not everything is the worst version that we would imagine. Sometimes it's the day-to-day human things that we all feel that are the real way we should approach the conversation. So finally, with a nod to Winnie the Pooh, who is my favorite Disney character, I can only leave you with encouragement that when you're going through the worst parts, either personally, in dealing with your own mental health and well-being, or when you're trying to be the advocates who rally behind Kelly and Jen and Mindshare Partners and all the organizations that are trying to do something about this, Christopher Robin's pep talk, we can be smart and strong and brave. And if we're not, then who will be? And if we won't stand up and help move this forward, who will? So thank you for being here. Thank you for everything that you're doing. And I'm looking forward to chatting with Mike and Kelly. Thanks very much.